Hey lovely people, Shakti here, and wanting to share a little bit today about my Meeting the Masculine course that is starting this Sunday, but also just to share some reflections on the Divine Masculine, having just come back from a beautiful experience at the Rumble Dance Festival just north of London. Hello, welcome, where I was surrounded by beautiful divine masculines, and the whole event really was such a beautiful expression of the dance, the elegant and harmonious dance between divine masculine and divine feminine in its co-creation and coming together and operation. So I just want to speak to that a little bit, because what I always find is that in my work, when I'm teaching to a particular topic, my life is always a reflection of the topic I'm teaching about, and so there's always this complete sense of what's happening in my life is directly related to what I'm teaching about. So the part of my Awakening Shakti course that I'm coming to right now, starting this weekend, is Meeting the Masculine. And so I've just come from this full-on weekend. Let me just share a little bit, where there was so many beautiful men helping to hold the space to co-create the event that was organized and directed by an incredibly powerful woman, Julia Samuel. So she was the leader, the director in a sense, but it was teamwork, co-creation, and the men who were there in service to her vision. The men who were there were in service to life and in service to the greater purpose of that event, to co-create this beautiful festival for so many souls to come together and share in dance and music, and bringing their gifts and putting ego aside to support the whole in terms of sound engineering, the head chef, the cafe, the event site manager and his partner, this beautiful divine masculine presence in service to the vision of unity, of love, of joy, of harmony, and of honoring the earth. And that was woven all the way through. So, like, first of all, I just want to say thank you to those men, and I see you're there, who were there supporting and co-creating and holding the space with your beautiful divine masculine presence. Like, truly thank you, to feel that, to be in that field. Such, this is what we're all here for, to move towards this way of living in community and harmony and togetherness, rather than division and separation and conflict. And as I speak to that now, I just feel really touched in the remembrance of that, and in the remembrance of sitting in circle with men who were willing to be fully vulnerable in baring their hearts, in sharing their tears, in showing their vulnerability, which is such a strength. So when I talk about divine masculine, what does that even mean? What does that, what is that? It's a term that we use in the New Age community, and it can sound so highfalutin and perhaps like not really real, not something we can really relate to, but it is relatable, because for me this means a man who is and has been doing his own work to heal his own wounds and traumas. We all have them, men and women alike, right? Because of life. So this is a man who's been doing this work, walking his path, doing his best, and bringing his consciousness into unification with his heart, healing his heart, opening his heart, being willing to walk that path of bringing the consciousness down into the heart and then down into the sex, into the cock, into the earth, right? It's that alignment, that presence, that stillness, that integration, that verticality of intention and presence and purpose and stillness, because there was a lot of feminine energy, obviously dance, right? The body, movement, life force, Shakti in full force on the dance floor, in the music, in the flow, in the chaos, in the hiccups, in things happening, which is life. And then still that presence. And in fact, in one of my workshops, one of the participants asked me this question, and I kind of realized afterwards I could have given a better answer, because he asked me, how can I as a man penetrate, like bring my masculine to penetrate life, sort of bringing energy down that way rather than energy up? Because in the tantra, well, there's all kinds of different ways we can work with these energies, but I guess many of the ways that I work is from the ground up, so from the feminine up. But of course it works the other way as well, and one leads to the other. But what I kind of didn't feel I said clearly enough then, which came to me afterwards, which is that the masculine brings his clarity, his stillness, his consciousness to life, and in that way he is already penetrating and allowing her, the feminine, then within or without, to blossom, to feel safe, to open, and to radiate her beauty, her creativity, her lusciousness, her juiciness, all of this. And this is an internal process as much as one that can happen between man and woman or same sex. You know, these energies are within all of us. So just wanting to share that and share my gratitude and my honoring of these divine masculines that I've been around this past weekend. And then I want to talk a little bit about how that links into the next piece of work that I'm bringing through starting this weekend, which is called Meeting the Masculine. So for me, this works on two levels. I've been working with women for many years, 18 years now, teaching women primarily. And of course my work is very focused on sexual and spiritual awakening. And there can be this idea that then it is all about getting into the Shakti and the embodiment and the divine feminine and the beauty and the creativity. And it is that. And this cannot happen without an equal rising and meeting of the masculine within ourselves, right? So we're not looking for men to do that work for us externally. We have to include our own inner masculine energy and attend to the parts of ourselves where there is still wounding and trauma around that. So for me, this has been a huge part of my journey, and it still is. It's ongoing. It's never complete. But the way I see this is it kind of works on two levels. So one level, right, we are in a society and a culture that is still very much defined by, informed by, infused with the consciousness of a patriarchal way of thinking. And this patriarchal way of thinking is on its way out, but it is a way of thinking and formulating and seeing and visioning that privilege is a very unconscious or immature or unevolved form of masculinity. And this affects women and men equally. So I'm not blaming men here. It's just an awareness. It's just a seeing of the consciousness that's been prevalent. So that has been so much a part of our psyches, our lives, our societies for thousands of years that it's so ingrained we don't see it. We take it for granted, you know. It's like all of these ways in which power has been so infused into the structures of society, in education, in the media, in politics, in economics, in commerce, that we don't see it. We take it for granted. We think it's natural, but it's a very cock-centered, masculine privileging way of designing the world, which is why I put something about toilets and cues for toilets in the title to this video, because just a small example, like one tiny example, is, you know, how many times have you been to an event where there's a massive queue for the women's toilets? Why the fuck is that? When, of course, women and men have lived equally on this planet for the same amount of time. It's because architecture has not taken into account the fact that women go to the loo differently and have different needs, right? Simple. So the whole way society is structured has written out the different needs of the feminine body. And that way of thinking, this sort of generic patriarchal thinking, leads to, and this is what I have seen in my work, and what my work really is a way of unpicking and undoing and unraveling and healing, number one, is actually kind of a trauma almost, where women grow up to feel they are less than, or not to understand and honor their differences, and to love and appreciate their bodies, their blood, their womb space, their heart, their feeling nature, their emotions. All of these they judge themselves for, they hate themselves for. How many women have I worked with who truly love and honor their bodies? Practically none. Who are fully in touch with their sexuality? Practically none. Why? Because there's been this culture of shaming and demeaning and denigrating the feminine. This is all changing now, but that's the one part of why, even if you might not think this has affected you, it has, and it does. And through this work, we're here to highlight this and clear it out. The second part of this is because of this way of thinking that's been so ingrained, many women have experienced sexual abuse, or inappropriate touching, or inappropriate comments, or had difficult relationships. Again, because of the unconsciousness in the field around masculine and feminine sexual energy, and the shaming of the sexual, which is part of the feminine. And so, for example, when I hold space, typically at least a third of women have experienced sexual abuse. And I would say that's probably fairly representative. So, and that's not even talking about just the everyday comments and sexting, for example, that happens, right? The unwanted attention, the overriding of boundaries. And again, I'm not here to blame men for this. This is something in the consciousness that has affected all of us. And my work is very much about unpicking and healing this within. But so then again, you know, conflict in relationship, wounding through relationship, trauma through sexual abuse, then these two things together, so the general programming and conditioning and the individual life experience you might have had, creates within the feminine and within women wounding and trauma, unconscious until it's made conscious, which will impact and affect the way we relate to men and to the masculine within ourselves and externally. And so you can do all the awakening of your Shakti and all the stepping into your feminine power you like, but if you're doing it without also including this part of the masculine, you're missing half of your being. And these wounds, these traumas, these unconscious conditions and programmings and beliefs that might be around shame of your sexuality, shame of your body, shame of your emotions, bullying yourself, having inner conflict between your masculine and feminine aspects, will affect your life. They'll affect your vitality, they'll affect your relationships, they'll affect your business, they'll affect your energy levels, they'll affect your physical, emotional and psychological well-being. So it all has a knock-on effect. I'm just going to look at my notes because I made a few notes. I don't usually like to talk to notes, but I'm just going to have a look to see if there's anything I've missed out. So yeah, I guess I'll give you a concrete example because again, I like to make things as specific as I can. So for me, for example, I grew up in a household where there were the very, very traditional roles, right? So dad was the dominant, controlling, arch masculine, bully masculine, you know, like if you look at the shadow archetypes of king, warrior, magician, lover, for example, he would have been like a bit of a tyrant, really, a bully and a controller. And my mum was the kind of disempowered victim. So those were the models of masculine and feminine that I grew up with. As a result of that, I had tons of buried resentment towards the masculine and fear of men to a certain extent. And then I had experiences of abuse and sexually as well. So there was a lot of healing for me to do. But as I've done that inner work of meeting the masculine within myself, so for me this has meant a dedicated meditation practice so that I begin to cultivate within myself this connection to stillness, this connection to consciousness beyond the thinking egoic mind, right? So I have that anchoring into that vertical presence within my own being. So I've had to cultivate that through regular daily years-long meditation practice. That's one way. Another way is through going into my inner relationship with the masculine and exploring my relationship with my father, with other men, and healing through feeling the wounds of that by going through the process of fully feeling within my body all of those sensations, uncomfortable and difficult as they are, and then finally being able to get to a place of integration and forgiveness. And it's really magical and remarkable, because as I've done this and it's ongoing, my relationship with my father has shifted like completely to a place where we are sincerely loving and accepting one another now in the most beautiful way. The nature of the men in my field has completely changed. You know, there was a time when I used to complain and say, where are all the divine masculines, for fuck's sake? And I've just come away from a weekend where I was surrounded by them, and I was having a conversation with just one of those beautiful men and saying this to him and sincerely saying, wow, thank you for showing up and being so sincere and humble and authentic and in reverence, bringing a devotion to this event, you know. So as we change, obviously what is outside us changes to reflect that. So yeah, healing the resentment, healing the mistrust, healing the blame, and healing the shame, so that we can begin to live in togetherness, in harmony, in unification, first and foremost with ourselves, and then of course in community and in union with others, as friends, as partners, as lovers, as co-creators of the new earth, which is what I'm here for anyway. Yep. So there is healing to do. Looking at our patterns, bringing light to them, not so as to shame ourselves, but so as to free ourselves, to liberate ourselves, to clear, to forgive. But we cannot forgive until we first felt fully. You know, you can't fake or push forgiveness. And then reframing and elevating. So another part of my course, the Meeting the Masculine course, I've got a stack of interviews with beautiful conscious men. So you can go in and feel and hear the resonance, the vibration, the nature of what it is to be in that. So you really get to know and feel all the different expressions of the divine masculine as he's coming through and rising up there to meet us. So, you know, women, we can't do this alone. We need the masculine, we need our men. And to bring these relationships inside and outside to their highest and greatest potential, it takes us to do that inner journey first of meeting our masculine. So yeah, if you'd like to know more about that, I can pop the link below. I've got a webpage all about it, but the Meeting the Masculine is something you can do as a self-study course. But I'm going to be teaching it as a live course over the next 6 weeks, starting on Sunday, the 28th of August. So I'll pop the details below. And please reach out as well if you have any questions about that. Really excited about this because my life always changes when I teach this segment, this part. Like, the outer always reflects the inner, so I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that as I go through this material, things shift in my business, in my relationships, everything just up levels once again. So yeah, thank you everyone who's been watching. Felt a little bit shy actually and nervous today. I haven't done a live for a while, but yeah, thank you for being with me, and reach out if you've got any questions. Lots and lots of love, and bye for now.